The Israeli NGO Israel has been helping the flood of refugees fleeing Syria and other war zones as they cross into Greece. Journalist Leora Ehrenfrucht recently returned from the Greek island of Lesbos, where she witnessed the human tragedy and talked to the IBA about the life-saving treatment and psychological support Israelis are giving them.
You have thousands of refugees landing every day. The volunteers there never know quite where they're going to pull up. So they're wandering back and forth along the coast.
How do they arrive?
They arrive on rubber dinghies and occasionally dilapidated wooden boats. They're always overcrowded. They force people apparently at gunpoint to board on the Turkish side. The motors often conk out halfway over. And they're so overcrowded that if somebody leans over, it loses its balance and the whole boat can capsize.
What's their mental state like when they're coming?
They're almost all traumatized, both from what they experienced, the horrors they experienced in their homeland that caused them to flee, and the journey itself over, which was also a nightmare. Sometimes they lost members of their family on the way. They had to bury a baby after they arrived. In the worst cases, some of them are barely alive. They're suffering from hypothermia. They've been in freezing water for hours. So there are medical teams on the other side, obviously, that perform CPR and have all the equipment necessary to resuscitate whoever can be resuscitated. Sometimes the ones I saw who arrived were in pretty good medical shape, but then they need psychological care. Some of them need support after all the traumas that they've been through.
What's Israel doing?
Their volunteers consist of people who are either, doctors or medics or psychologists and social workers. And that's what they do. They provide emergency medical care. They have a mobile medical clinic in the back of the car, in the trunk of the car, and wherever refugees arrive, they speed over there and treat them. And then on the refugee camps, in the refugee camps itself and in apartments that they rent, they help those who need more psychological care. The Israeli team is made up of both Arabs and Jews. One of the criteria for people working there is that they know Arabic, so there are a lot of Arab Israelis there. The island is actually full of ironies, because refugees are arriving, and particularly among the Israel team, they're being received by, in some cases, Palestinian refugees' children or grandchildren. An American Jewish woman whose grandparents were refugees in the Holocaust and spent 4 years as refugees, which was one of her motivations for doing this. And on top of that, they're being received on an island of Greeks who themselves are refugees from Turkey in the 1920s.
Were there any interesting stories about people finding out that these were Israelis who were helping them, or Jews? Any reactions to that?
Some of the volunteers told me that they got the unexpected question from some of the Syrian refugees who asked Israel, "Can I seek asylum there? Do you think they'll accept me?"
How did the Greeks receive the refugees?
The Greeks, in general, as we know, are in a pretty rough economic situation. The arrival of these refugees has, for the most part, hurt them badly, because all the wealthy tourists who would come on cruise ships are no longer coming to an island that is inundated with refugees. And yet, everyone I spoke to seemed to feel just compassion toward them.
Is this a way station for them? Are they moving on, or are they going to be living there? Or do they want to come to Israel, any of them?
Actually, one of the refugees, I interviewed an Iraqi guy when I said I was from Israel. He went, "Israel, freedom!"